A lot of developing news coming out regarding Russia's response to the United States oil sanctions coming out in the last 24 hours. Take a look at the latest headlines with me. You can see this coming out today. World War III tensions spike as Russia accuses Donald Trump of an act of war. We're going to get to all the details. Vladimir Putin's ally, Dmitry Medvedev, has accused U.S. President Donald Trump of an act of war against Russia as global tensions rise. Now, this comes as, take a look at what has unfolded today as well. Russia violates NATO airspace in Lithuania amid Putin warning on long-range missiles. We're hearing that this is still going on. Russia escalating the conflict. And take a look at this. I also let you know right after we had heard that the meeting had fallen apart between Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, Russia launches large-scale nuclear force drills. ICBMs and cruise missiles launched to test land, sea, and air components. A lot of people concerned about the ICBMs, the nuclear triad being tested. And take a look at this. Europe has decided on war. Orban drops World War III bombshell, declares Hungary won't die for Ukraine, as they are saying that is the direction that Europe is going, World War III, and things are escalating between Russia, the United States, Ukraine, NATO. Now, I've got a lot of video footage I'm going to be sharing with you that's come out in the last 24 hours. We're going to be hearing from Mark Rutte from NATO. We're also going to be hearing from Donald Trump, seeing the response. And where do you think we're going from here? Are things going to be escalating? Let me know your thoughts. Are we going to have war? If so, put war. Are we going to be able to have peace? If so, put peace. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, in addition to that, I'm also going to be sharing with you from the Associated Press. There was a video clip that actually showed just a little while ago Vladimir Putin's response to what's going on. And he said this is an unfriendly response from the United States, and this is going to escalate things, and he even mentions potential war. Now, I can't play for you the clip because the Associated Press has copyright issues, but I can take screenshots, and we're going to read through exactly what it was that Putin had to say so you can see it for yourself, coming out today, October the 23rd, 2025. So I'm going to dive into the articles, the video footage, so you can see it for yourself. And if you appreciate that, I'm going to put it on the screen, read right from it. I also hyperlink every single article that I'm going to be referencing in the description, so that way you can see the sources, the dates, hold myself accountable. If you appreciate that I do that here on YouTube, do me a quick favor before we dive in, hit that thumbs up like button for me. It just helps spread this out further while we're live to spread the latest updated information. And to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that way you can stay up to date on the latest, as pretty much doing daily updates right now with all the news that has been pouring in. So let's get right to it. I see we've got already over 2,000 people on with me live. If we get half the room to hit the like button, get that up to 1,000. Really helps out the live stream. If you haven't done so yet and you appreciate the updates, please take a second, hit that button. But let's go ahead and take a look at the breaking news updates as to where things currently stand. And also, we're going to take a look at what it was that Vladimir Putin just said moments ago. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video footage.
Fox News alert: President Trump is ramping up the pressure on Moscow to end its war in Ukraine, announcing some painful sanctions on two of their largest oil producers.
Peter Ducey joins us live from the White House with the details. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning. If the Russians are not ready to have a serious summit with President Trump and President Putin about ending the war in Ukraine, then it is time for some new economic punishment.
We are going to either announce after the close this afternoon or first thing tomorrow morning a substantial pickup in Russia's sanctions.
They didn't wait. Now more than half of Russian oil exports have been slapped with new sanctions. You've got the Rosneft, which holds about 40% of Russia's oil production, with a new sanction, and Lukoil, which holds about 15% of Russia's oil and gas production, slapped with a new sanction. And President Trump thinks that even without this new economic punishment, Putin is close.
I saw, Mr. President, that you said as recently as yesterday that you still believe that Putin wants to end a war.
Yeah, I do. Look, these are tremendous sanctions. These are very big. Those are against their two big oil companies, and we hope that they won't be on for long. We hope that the war will be settled. I think they both want peace at this point. It's been, it's almost 4 years. You're going into 4 years, and if I were president, it never would have started. But yeah, it's time.
And President Trump is also officially saying, no, he's not going to send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia. The reason that he is giving now is because there's too much of a learning curve. He says it would take the Ukrainians 6 months to a year to learn how to actually shoot the Tomahawks, which means that the only way they would get shot is by Americans, and that is not something that anybody here wants. Back to you.
Peter, Mark Thiessen just said in speaking to General Keane that it's not 6 months. The president got bad information. It's more like 6 weeks.
Well, it is possible that he is watching this, and if not, he will probably hear about that from some of the people in the administration who want to, who would like to be more aggressive towards Russia, who think that if the Ukrainians just have these extra weapons, the war will wind down faster.
Right. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah.
So there you have it, you guys. Now, also, we are hearing that Putin has just responded to this. So I'm going to play that here in just a second
Seeing
right
those
now
shots
as well.
of those children pulled out of the kindergarten, who that's what they aimed for. The Russians aiming for children in kindergarten.
Terrible.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, I'm not going to play it for you because, as you can see, this is Associated Press, and so far they have not liked when I play their video clips on YouTube, but I'm just going to read through the captions for you. You can see here, Vladimir Putin, this is today, the president of Russia, said this is an unfriendly act towards Russia. It is obvious this is in response to the U.S. sanctions that have been placed on them. He said it doesn't help strengthen Russian-American relations, which have only just begun to recover. He says such action by the U.S. administration certainly damages Russia-U.S. relations. They are, of course, serious for us, it's clear, and they will have certain consequences. However, they will not have a significant impact on our economy. A sharp reduction in the amounts of our oil and oil products sent to global markets will lead to price increases. We have discussed it with my American colleagues. What will it lead to? It will lead to a sharp increase. Now, in the price of oil and petroleum products, including at gas stations, and the United States is no exception. So he's saying this will also hurt the U.S. economy as well. The U.S. president has decided to cancel or postpone this meeting. It seems he is talking about postponing it. I can say that a dialogue is always better than confrontation, arguments, or even more so, war. That's why we have always supported continuing dialogue, and we support it now as well. That coming out from Vladimir Putin. This coming out just 2 hours ago, posted by the Associated Press. This is Vladimir Putin's response to what is taking place right now. And in addition to that, as I mentioned in my title and also right here, you can see that Dmitry Medvedev, he has said that this is actually an act of war, speaking on behalf of Russia. So we're going to take a look at this article here in just a second, but first let's take a look at some more information coming out regarding this from Fox News. Seeing what is going on, it says NATO leader reveals what's next for Trump with the canceled Putin meeting, as we're hearing that they are saying that these new sanctions, this is an act of war. Let's go ahead and take a look at this clip so you can see it for yourself.
You also posted about your call with President Putin today. You spoke about meeting in Hungary with him. Do you have a timeline or a date set for when?
I would say within 2 weeks or so. I'm doing it also to help Europe. They want to have it ended, but they're unable to do it. I'm able to do it. So I think we'll be successful. It didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like we were going to get to the place we have to get, so I canceled it. But we'll do it in the future.
President Trump talking about meeting with Vladimir Putin in Hungary, that now off. Joining us just out of the White House Oval Office, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Mr. Secretary General, thanks for coming back on Special Report.
Thanks for having me on the program again.
I would love to get your assessment of what you took from that Oval Office meeting. We obviously got a chance to ask questions to the president inside, but what's your take from that meeting?
Well, here we have a president who from day one coming into office wants to end this war in Ukraine. By the way, he has been extremely successful recently with Gaza, and he has ended other conflicts, including India, Pakistan, and Armenia, Azerbaijan. So he is really a peacemaker. He wants to end this war. This is close to his heart. He wants to end the killing. And I think what he did on Friday and Sunday, saying, hey, let's stop where you are. So stop where you are. And then you can still debate a lot of other things later. But stop the fighting is exactly the right approach. And now we have to make sure that Ukraine wants to do it. They said already. But also for the Russians to come to the table. And today the sanctions on oil companies will help.
We see the line as we look at the map. It hasn't changed much. You say stop the line. In Europe, are leaders on board? Is Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky on board to get to a ceasefire, stopping where it is right now?
Zelensky already indicated that he wants to do that. And of course, what helped here is that the American president, President Trump, said that when it comes to security assurances for Ukraine, where the Europeans are working hard to get there, that he wants to join that. That will, of course, help also for the Ukrainians, for the US to be involved. But in the end, there has to be a meeting. They have to sit together, but it has to start with a full ceasefire. And I fully support the president's vision on this.
You know, you mentioned that the sanctions that the Treasury Department has put in place, you think that's going to change the dynamic. Things so far have not moved Putin to get to this ceasefire or to change what he's been doing with attacks inside Ukraine. Do you think this will do it? Do you think it's going to take more of attacks inside Russia by Ukraine?
Well, look what happened. I mean, the Russians have lost now 1 million people, dead or seriously wounded, since the war started. Since last Christmas, they gained a territory the size of Jacksonville in Florida. And last month, they again lost over 20,000 people. Not the seriously wounded, they were all dead. That's the same amount as the Soviets lost in 10 years in Afghanistan. So, and then look what happened when the president decided on secondary sanctions, on tariffs on India. Putin came to Alaska. When the president said we might, yes or no, do something with tomahawks. Immediately it was the Russian president on the phone with the American president last Thursday. So we are able collectively to change the calculus of Vladimir Putin. And here I really have to commend the leadership of Donald Trump, of the American president.
Mr. Secretary General, each one of those times, though, after Alaska, after Putin traveled to China, after phone calls, in the past, the attacks have increased inside Ukraine. What do you say to critics who say that these communications with Putin let him off the hook and essentially enable him to push this war forward while he continues to say, maybe I'll be willing to talk?
I would not agree. I would say that when President Trump came into office and was willing to dialogue and engage with both President Putin and President Zelensky, that's exactly the way forward. We always knew this was not easy to get this ended, and we still need time to do it, but consistent pressure on the Russians to come to the table. But also having sometimes very straightforward conversations with the president of Ukraine. This is all necessary. And this is exactly what the Americans are doing at the moment under the leadership of President Trump to end this war. This will not end tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, but I fully subscribe to his vision that the step one should be a ceasefire, full ceasefire, stop the fighting, stop the killing.
The Treasury Department, when they put out these sanctions, is urging that ceasefire that you're talking about in the statement that they put out. The Treasury Secretary was just on Larry Kudlow's show and is specifically talking about European countries and how important it is for European countries to get on board. Take a listen. Oh, and this is the president talking about that.
I think that they'll certainly have an impact. They're massive sanctions. It's sanctions on oil. The two biggest oil companies, among the biggest in the world, but they're Russian. They do a lot of oil. And hopefully it'll push, hopefully he'll become reasonable, and hopefully Zelensky will be reasonable too. You know, it takes two to tango.
And the Treasury Secretary is saying he's been making calls all afternoon to try to discuss it with European countries. Do you think countries over there are going to take this seriously and get on board with these sanctions?
Well, the good thing is that Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, and President Trump, they have become close friends over the last 3-4 months, and they were able to get to a deal when it comes to the trade relationship between the EU and the United States. And on that basis, I think it is totally fair for the US to say, hey, when we do stuff against, in this case, the Russians, we would like for the Europeans to follow as much as possible. And this is exactly the type of discussion going on. Take, for example, the Americans saying, why is Hungary and Slovakia still buying oil from Russia? And they are working together now to make sure that all of this step by step will get to a place where it provides maximum pressure on the Russians, because that's in the end what we need. And at the same time also keeping the conversation going with the Ukrainians.
I have this last thing, this graphic where it shows the Russian attacks after each one of these efforts that we talked about, Alaska, the phone calls, the outreach to Putin, and the number of attacks spike almost directly after each one of these things. Has the incursion into NATO countries continued? We had a spate of those with drones and other flyovers. Has that continued?
Yeah, what we have seen is, of course, 3 MiG-31 flying into Estonian space, and we have seen the drones into Poland, this all in the last 6 weeks. As far as we can establish, it was not intentional, but it was anyway reckless, it was unacceptable. But NATO reacted exactly as we should. We have trained and prepared for this. This is not new, this happened in the Soviet days. It now also happens under President Putin. It's got to stop. But NATO has exactly reacted, and if necessary, and let me make that point again, because there was some misunderstanding in the last couple of weeks, if necessary, NATO can take down these planes if they pose a threat. If they do not pose a threat, they will be intercepted and then gently being guided outside, in this case, of Estonian airspace.
And you're optimistic that Putin may change where he has been over recent weeks?
Look at the Russian economy, the long lines of cars into the gasoline stations, the fact that the Ukrainians have now hit 1/3 of the Russian oil and gas infrastructure, which is the main backbone of their economy. The French president now organizing in Europe for countries to do much more against this shadow fleet, which is also a main source of income for the Russians. All of this will help to change the calculus. But always, because you, the Americans, you have the biggest economy in the world, the biggest military in the world, and you have a president which is laser focused on getting this thing ended. And collectively, we will change Putin's calculus and get him to the table and get this ceasefire going. I'm absolutely convinced. It may not be today or tomorrow, but we will get there.
I know we all hope so. Mr. Secretary General, we appreciate your time.
There you have it, you guys. That was Mr. Mark Rutte, the leader of NATO, from the White House yesterday after the decisions were made to drop those meetings with Putin and Trump. And you heard him praising Donald Trump's efforts there. And if you agree with him and you appreciate Donald Trump's leadership of the United States trying to end the wars with Russia and Ukraine, he has said that he has now put an end to 8 different conflicts. If you appreciate Donald Trump, drop a 47 in the comments. And if you haven't done so yet, please take a second, hit that like button for me. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the articles coming out so that way you can see it for yourself. Coming out today, World War III tensions spike. As Russia accuses Donald Trump of an act of war, as we're hearing that today, Dmitry Medvedev, Putin's ally, has accused the United States President Donald Trump of an act of war against Russia as global tensions rise. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. I'm also going to be covering for you more details about what has unfolded with Russia today. The Kremlin has lashed out as Donald Trump branding his latest move an act of war against Russia. Former Russian president and close Putin ally Dmitry Medvedev warned of the looming threat of World War III, denouncing Trump's decision to scrap the planned summit with Vladimir Putin in Budapest and enforce tough new sanctions targeting Russian oil titans Rosneft and Lukoil, which we saw in that video clip. Donald Trump has said that he has broken off any potential future talks. He also now has slapped sanctions on Russia's 2 largest oil companies after we saw Russia also doing those tests, those drills, which were scheduled as normal, and we're also seeing them violate airspace. Donald Trump said he's had enough, slapped some serious sanctions, and after that we've heard that they said this is unfriendly, as we just saw from Putin. Dmitry Medvedev saying this is an act of war. Medvedev alleged that Moscow now suspects the U.S. may be sending alternative long-range weapons to Ukraine. So they're saying alternative long-range weapons the United States might be handing over to Ukraine, even though Trump has publicly refused to supply the Tomahawk missiles. It comes after Russian soldiers humiliated Putin with their actions. If any of the numerous commentators still had illusions, here you go, Medvedev wrote on Telegram. The USA is our enemy, and their talkative peacemaker has now fully taken up the path of war with Russia. So that's Medvedev today, October the 23rd, 2025. Yes, he does not always actively fight on the side of Kiev yet, but this is now his conflict, not the senile Biden's. Of course, they will say that he could not do otherwise, that he was pressured in Congress, etc. Now, this does not change the main thing. The decisions made are an act of war against Russia, and now Trump has fully aligned himself with the insane Europe. Trump defended his move to cancel the Budapest talks, telling reporters, "I don't want to have a wasted meeting. I don't want to have a wasted time. It didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like we were going to get to the place that we have to get, so I canceled it. But we'll do it in the future," Trump said. Now, Medvedev, now deputy chair of Russia's Security Council, said there was a clear plus in the latest swing of the Trump pendulum, as it gave Moscow license to escalate on the battlefield. It is now possible for Russia to ruthlessly strike with various weapons at all Ukrainian hideouts without looking back at unnecessary negotiations, he declared. And to achieve victory exactly where it is only possible, on the ground, not behind a desk, destroying enemies, not making meaningless deals. Following the U.S. sanctions announcement, shares in Rosneft and Lukoil plunged, deepening Russia's economic strain. Trump, however, described the move as tremendous sanctions, adding, "These are very big ones that are against their two big oil companies, and we hope that they won't be on for long. We hope that the war will be settled." It comes after a terrifying map reveals the U.S. regions where 75% of people will die in a nuclear World War III. So there you have it, you guys. This coming out today, updates as we are seeing. Medvedev saying this is an act of war, World War III concerns. We're seeing Russian President Vladimir Putin coming out and saying that he finds this very unfriendly by the United States, hopes that we can come to a diplomatic solution and we don't need to escalate to the point of war. Jeff Monge, thank you for the $2 super chat. Susie Float, thank you for the $10 super chat. She says, "Thank you, Steve, for keeping us informed on the latest. God bless you and your family." Thank you so much for the super chat and for the kind words. Truly appreciate that a ton. I will continue to keep you up to speed on everything. Now, in addition to that, let's go ahead and take a look at some more of the articles that have been coming out as we're hearing that Russia is not backing down. As we see it, Russia has violated new NATO airspace in Lithuania again amid Putin warning on long-range missiles. Let's go ahead and take a look at this article so you can see it for yourself. Russia has renewed its violations of NATO airspace with jet incursions into Lithuanian territory, the nation's president announced Thursday today. So we had seen these violations taking place over and over. The question was asked, are they continuing to violate airspace? Well, they did it again today. This is a blatant breach of international law and territorial integrity of Lithuania, the president said once again. It confirms the importance of strengthening European air defense readiness. The Lithuanian Ministry of Defense said Russian military aircraft briefly entered Lithuanian airspace. Our forces acted quickly with NATO jets on patrol. The ministry said around 6 p.m. local time, 2 Russian airplanes, an Su-30 and an Il-78, a refueling aircraft, entered Lithuanian airspace for about 18 seconds. A government source guessed it was a refueling exercise. 2 Spanish fighter jets on a NATO air police mission flew to the site of the violation. This is another demonstration of NATO's readiness to respond to any developments and ability to ensure the safety of the alliance's airspace, a NATO official said. Now, reading on, it says Russian diplomats in Vilnius had been called in to meet with the foreign ministry on this matter. In late September, Lithuania authorized its armed forces to shoot down unmanned aerial vehicles that breach its borders after several Russian drones crashed on its territory near the border. Russian jets also violated airspace in Estonia for 12 minutes last month, coming near the capital city of Tallinn. Now, meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin told journalists that if Russia were attacked with Western long-range missiles, the response would be very serious, if not overwhelming. Let them think about that. His comments came after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky asked the U.S. for long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles, and a Wall Street Journal report that the Trump administration lifted a key restriction on Ukraine's use of Western long-range missiles. Trump denied the report on Truth Social, so the rumor was floating around that the United States, Donald Trump, had said, go ahead and use long-range missiles on Russia. We give you the approval. Trump is denying those reports that are coming out. Zelensky asked the U.S. to provide Tomahawk missiles, but so far President Donald Trump has held off. Still, he imposes harsh sanctions on Russia's oil industry on Wednesday yesterday. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces on Tuesday said that it used British-made storm cruiser missiles to strike deep within Russian territory to strike a chemical plant. Meanwhile, Trump has called off plans to meet with Putin in Hungary, saying that he didn't want to waste time after the Kremlin rejected the idea of freezing the front lines of the battle while the two sides hash out a longer-term peace deal. The U.S. president last month suggested NATO countries should shoot down Russian jets that violate their airspace. Do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircrafts if they enter their airspace? A reporter asked President Trump. Yes, I do, he replied. So there it is, you guys. We're hearing that Russia is still today violating that airspace. And take a look, I also let you know. Now, we heard that this was a typical annual drill that was done, but it was still very concerning with the way that tensions currently are. Russia has launched large-scale nuclear forces drills. ICBMs and cruise missiles launched to test land, sea, and air components, that nuclear triad. The Russian armed forces have launched large-scale exercises testing the capabilities of their strategic nuclear triad, which has involved launches of international-range ballistic missiles and air-launched cruise missiles. Commenting on the exercises, the Kremlin reported under the leadership of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, a strategic nuclear force exercise was conducted involving the land, sea, and air components. During the exercise, practical launches of intercontinental ballistic missiles and air-launched cruise missiles were conducted. Missiles launched have included a Yars land-based ICBM from the Plesetska Cosmodrome, around 800 kilometers north of Moscow toward the Kura test range on the Kamchatka Peninsula. That is actually where we saw that 8.8 magnitude earthquake. That was massive. I think the sixth largest recorded back in July. Some people speculating that it was an underground nuclear explosion that has triggered massive earthquakes since. Now, a R-29 RMU Sinva submarine-launched intercontinental range ballistic missiles fired from the nuclear-powered submarine, the Bryansk, in the Barents Sea, and multiple cruise missiles launched from the Tu-95 MS strategic bombers. So we had seen this taking place as well, causing a little bit of panic, even though they said it was a regular drill. With the way the tensions currently are, a lot of people saying that this is still concerning. Let me know your thoughts. Seeing Russia test their nuclear triad, is this concerning to you at this time? If you think yes, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But we're hearing that things are escalating, and they're saying they are going in the direction of war. Let's go ahead and take a look at this update coming out here. Now, this one coming out earlier today from CNN. I know that they can slant particularly far to the left, but let's go ahead and just take a look at the update as to what they are saying is going on with Russia and the United States right now.
Russia responds after the U.S. hit the country's two largest oil companies with big new sanctions over the war in Ukraine. Russia's foreign minister is now calling that move entirely counterproductive. And we are standing by to hear from Vladimir Putin. Also this morning, oil prices are rising sharply as traders are worried about a squeeze on the global supply that could be coming due to these sanctions. President Trump's actions showing signs that his patience with Vladimir Putin is waning for now. He announced yesterday that he's nixed an anticipated summit with the Russian leader, a meeting that Donald Trump himself was very enthusiastic about just last week after his phone call with Putin. CNN's Claire Sebastian is tracking all of this for us, and there is a lot that has developed overnight. Claire.
Yeah, Kate, I think, first of all, this is, and we see this coming through in the Russian rhetoric this morning, a big political shift. Even before we start to talk about the economics, Russia has been through 9 months of the Trump administration where multiple deadlines and threats on sanctions have not been enforced, have essentially evaporated, or they've been able to sidestep them. Now these sanctions are in place, and they are bigger than even the Biden administration was prepared to do. Rosneft and Lukoil, the two biggest oil producers in Russia, they account for around half of Russian oil exports. So, look, this is definitely big. We're seeing rhetoric coming out from Russia brushing this off. The foreign ministry spokeswoman saying, look, our country has developed a strong immunity, she said, to Western restrictions, essentially saying that it's not going to have the desired impact. But then you hear from the former president, now deputy head of the Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, saying the United States is our adversary, and their talkative, quote, peacemaker, he says, has now fully embarked on the warpath against Russia. So they are having to recalibrate around this. As to the economic front, is this going to have the desired effect? Is this going to cost Russia enough to bring Putin to the table? That is just not clear yet. It depends on a number of things. Are these sanctions going to be heavily enforced by the US? Is Russia going to find workarounds, as it's suggested, as it's done so effectively so far in this war, with things like the Shadow Fleet? And I think there's a big wild card around India as well. From talking to experts this morning, they import a lot of Russian oil at the moment, but they are involved in trade talks with the US, and there are suggestions that they might be likely to adhere to this US policy and perhaps cut back or stop exporting or stop importing Russian oil, and that would be a big problem for Russia. So we are really watching and trying to understand the impact of this and essentially what the US will do going forward. How much commitment will they show to enforce these new sanctions, Kate?
Yeah, and you're spot on, it seems, with the reality of it. The announcement, yes, important, coming from the Treasury and how they're saying it, but the follow-through and how it's going to impact the biggest purchasers of Russian oil and gas is really what needs to be seen and is not quite known yet. It's great to see you, Claire. Thank you so much.
There you have it, you guys. Wow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And do you think that we're going to see this escalate? You heard them say, what is going to be the involvement of the United States in all of this? Right now, the United States is applying massive pressure to Russia with these sanctions, to which we saw Dmitry Medvedev say this is an act of war. Putin said this is a very unfriendly move. We prefer diplomacy. Hopefully don't have to escalate things, and hopefully we can stay away from war and conflict. Words coming out from Putin and Dmitry Medvedev today, October 23rd, 2025. Let me know, where do you think we're going to be heading with this? Do you like the way that Donald Trump is handling this? I saw somebody in the comments say that Vladimir Putin is not used to people standing up to him, and that's what we're seeing happening with Trump. Now, do you think that this is going to cause Russia to take a step back as they're being pressured by the United States, or are they going to push forward and we're going to end up in a conflict with Russia? Let me know your thoughts. What direction is this going to be going for the United States of America? War or peace? Drop it in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. And if you haven't done so yet, please take a second, hit the like button. We just need about 30 more likes to get to 1,500 while we're live. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And let's take a look at this. Hungary is saying, we are going to war. You can see this coming out October 24th, because over in India, this is coming out from the Times of India. It's already tomorrow, October the 24th. Europe has decided on war. Orban drops World War III bombshell, declares Hungary won't die for Ukraine. So foreign news media outlets talking about some of the things that are coming out from other presidential leaders. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban has sharply criticized Western nations for their role in the Ukraine war, calling out the so-called coalition of the willing for sending weapons, money, and personnel while prolonging the conflict. Now, in addition to that, we also heard that President Donald Trump has said that he will not send those weapons, those long-range Tomahawk missiles, to Ukraine. However, the talks are off with Russia, and he is applying those major sanctions. Orban warned that these pro-war countries have effectively declared the war on their own and are now in it up to their necks. He also claimed that if Brussels had not obstructed an American-led peace initiative, the war in Ukraine could have already ended. Orban's comments highlight deep division in Europe over military aid to Kiev and the West's approach to resolving the ongoing conflict. So there you have it. We are seeing varying opinions being drawn. Two sides are emerging, and a lot of people are speculating, as you see here, that we could be entering into World War III. And let me know your thoughts. Are we going to war? I see people dropping war in the comments. If you think so, put a WW3 in the comments. But you guys, that is the latest. We are hearing that right now the conflict is escalating. Russian President Vladimir Putin responding just a couple of hours ago. He is saying that this is unfriendly and he hopes for diplomacy. He said this is going to be hurting the Russian economy. However, it's not going to destroy them. He said this is also going to be hurting the U.S. economy. He said he is hoping for diplomacy, but he said he hopes that we don't have to go into something more serious such as war. Here is a screenshot from that so you can see it for yourself from the Associated Press. I can say that a dialogue is always better than confrontation, arguments, or even more so, war. And in the beginning of that statement, he said it doesn't help strengthen Russian-American relations, which have only just begun to recover. And so we're going to be seeing where we go from here as articles like this coming out in the last 24 hours. You can see today, Thursday, October the 23rd, 2025, World War III tensions spike as Russia accuses Donald Trump of an act of war. So we're going to be seeing where we go from here, and whatever unfolds, I'll be sure to keep you guys up to date here on the channel so you know exactly what is going on. But that is the latest, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll keep you up to speed. All the articles linked in the description. You can click them, go read them for yourself. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date. Hit that thumbs up like button if you appreciate the live streams and you haven't done so yet. And I'll keep you up to speed on everything. But that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.